You're watching PM Agenda. Time to bring in our panel of political strategists, Grahame Morris and Bruce Hawker. Welcome to you both. I don't think we've spent as much time on the program talking about the ABC before, but this is a significant story. Grahame Morris in particular, it does have with the way Mark Scott has gone about these cuts, the potential to create a lot of regional problems, problems in regional areas for the government. Of course, you do have that pretty clear promise from Tony Abbott on election eve. How do you see this issue?
Well, look, every big business, every small business, every media organisation at the moment is pruning. And the ABC gets $1.2 billion, and you think, well, come on, fellas, just have a go at this and see what happens. And, you know, he's got a few ideas where the money would come from. But it just seemed to me, in the lead up to this, making the case, what was the case they were making? You know, sort of run as fast as you can. You can't touch me. I'm the ABC. You know, we're entitled to 1.2 billion. In fact, we're entitled to 1.5. What sort of a case is that? Nobody made the case as to why the ABC should not be pruned. And apart from that, one of the more embarrassing things is that the ABC in Canberra, its main market, you've got to retune your TV at the moment, and for half the business community and half the suburbs, the ABC and SBS has been off the air for a week and nobody cared. Weird.
Well, I get it through my Foxtel, of course, and I haven't noticed a problem there, but that's an interesting point. What about the Prime Minister's election eve promise, though? That's what's causing him political pain as he tried to pretend he may not have been as unequivocal as he was.
I would love to know the person who walks into a polling booth and said, "Oh, I know what I'm going to vote on. I'm going to vote on the ABC."
Sure, but
it doesn't matter.
It matters what a leader says.
All right. Well, they ought to be bucketing the Labor Party. Why don't the ABC up there bucket the Labor Party for running into the mess that meant the Abbott and his government had to cut?
Well,
yeah, that's the issue.
Yes, and maybe make that argument. But the point is, he did say that, didn't he? Not before the election. No cuts to the ABC.
Yeah, I know. Look. That last
you don't think that's a problem for him?
That last week of an election campaign where radio jocks, TV programs and 12-year-olds with a microphone jam up a leader's nose and say, "Will you rule this out?" Every blinking Prime Minister I have known has gotten into trouble in the last week of an election campaign. Not in the policy documents.
No, but in what they...
It's that last thing and blurt out it comes.
And that's what creates the damage. And Bruce, I'm sure you wouldn't disagree with that. But what do you make of the impact of that comment in particular? It is a broken promise, but is it going to cause as much grief for Tony Abbott as Julia Gillard's broken promise did?
Well, it should, because it's one of many. I mean, you could argue that Julia Gillard broke one promise, and that related to a carbon tax. In the one interview he did on the eve of the election, he broke about four. No cuts to the ABC, health, welfare, education and SBS. So he was flying that night, and I think he should be held accountable for it, frankly. There's the public may
No, I agree with you there. But what about the actual substance of what's being done here in a policy sense? I mean, do you have a problem with the ABC, an organisation that's been exempt from efficiency dividends, copping a bit of a haircut?
No, I don't think so. I think everybody has to take, some cut, but let's put it into proportion. The ABC's budget is somewhere in the order of $1 billion plus per annum. Tony Abbott's paid parental leave scheme is going to cost $5.2 billion per annum. So why doesn't he start by cutting that promise out? That's one promise we'd all be quite happy for him to break, frankly, and accept that that's just profligacy on his part. And if he started to change his policies around those areas, then he could afford to keep the ABC's funding at a decent level. The other point I'd make about the ABC cuts is that if they are felt in the bush, then they will be felt rather keenly, because people in the country, as Grahame and everybody knows, are much more dependent on the ABC than they are on other networks. And I think
that's true.
Scott's actually made a bit of a point there by cutting programs like Bush Telegraph and other regional programs.
That's what's going on here? Is he making a political point by, and we saw that in the interview, he's not, by the sounds of it, touching the marketing budget. They're still going to spend several million marketing the ABC. But are saving a few $100,000 by cutting some of these regional radio outposts.
You may well say that. I couldn't possibly comment.
Yeah, well, Grahame.
Look. the marketing budget wasn't too much really when you think about it. You know, trying to get eyeballs to watch the ABC or listen to the ABC. A couple of $1 million doing that. I didn't think that was too bad, really.
All right. Let's talk about Jackie Lambie, the Palmer United Party.
Let's not.
Grahame, does it change the equation, do you think, much for the government in particular?
Yeah, it does. It makes it harder. Look, I'm a great believer in loyalty, and you know, I hope Senator Lambie now sort of settles down, whatever her problems have been. You know, it just seemed to me she hasn't met a boss yet that she can't dud. The Defence Department was thrilled to see the back of her. Clive Palmer now is sort of, rather she didn't go, but she's gone. Look, I hope she does settle down and becomes more reasonable, because you know, much of her professional and personal life so far is a bit all over the place. Does it make it difficult? Yes, of course it makes it difficult for the government, because now they've got to, you know, instead of just hoping that 3 or 4 of the Palmers will vote together,
they won't.
You're now all over the place.
Yeah, it's not going to be an easy task for the government, Bruce, is it?
Well, it doesn't become any easier. I'm not sure that it gets all that much more difficult, because I never expected that this crowd were going to vote as a bloc all the time, and I think most people in the government didn't think so either. You know, they're far too wacky, frankly, to be able to be held to any particular line at any particular moment. You know, Jackie Lambie's like a human pinball. She's bouncing around all the time, and so is Clive Palmer, for that matter. And in fact, that's one of the problems he's got now, is that she sort of took some of his thunder as being the anti-politician politician. So I don't think it will be any really too much more difficult for the government to get its agenda through than it already is. They will need to pick up 6 votes at any one time to get a majority in the Senate. Now it's going to be a bit harder, but frankly, you know, on any one day, who knows where any of these characters are going to be voting on any particular issue.
And it'll be interesting to see if any of them do want to make themselves more relevant by dealing themselves into the process with the government more often. Finally, I want to get both your thoughts, predictions on the Victorian election. It's coming up Saturday. It's been very tight throughout the campaign. Bruce, you first on this. What are you expecting?
I think it's going to be very tough last week, and we're basically seeing that now. I think it's going to be a tight election. You know, obviously the opposition started well ahead of the field because of, you know, because basically the way the government lost control of the parliament. I thought that was a very significant problem for them. But I think it's tightening up, and I think it'll go right down to the wire. I don't think anybody in Daniel Andrews' team is saying, oh, we're going to win this election. They're going to be going out there and trying to win every possible vote, and who knows what the result will be on the evening. I know the polls say Labor's going to win, but I think it's going to be tight.
And Grahame?
Yeah, Bruce is right. The Labor Party were given a big start. The momentum is now with the Libs. The gap is closing in the marginal seat. The marginal seat polling is much different to the big polling. Look, there will be less than 5 votes, whoever governs. It is going to be close. I think everyone's just hoping you don't have a Labor government with a sort of a green upper house control, because they want to close down the coal-fired power states. All of a sudden, Victoria will again be the blackout state.
Well, we'll see how it pans out on Saturday and talk to both of you after that. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We'll take a break.